And one thing I'm going to add, and we gotten this at the end, but I want to do it now because we're talking about independents and how they look at things, is the only person, I mean, it's not like they're become Democrats. It's not like
Yeah,
these
no,
voters that they're, and I'm looking at US Senate races, I think is really important in this, and how the candidates maneuver, especially the new candidates who want to win, like Tallarico and Alabama, and Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and Jackson in Maine, is who the only person among independents who has worse numbers than Donald Trump is?
Chuck Schumer?
Chuck Schumer.
right.
And 46% of Democrats disapprove of Chuck Schumer,
Hmm.
right? And overwhelmingly independents. Chuck Schumer strongly approve among independents is 1%.
Yeah,
Strongly disapprove is 40%. That's why I actually thought Jackson and Maine, in my view, and I've advocated for this, and I'm curious to hear what you think, y'all think, is I think the Democrats who are running should say, I'm not going to vote for Chuck Schumer. I'm going to support a leader who represents the working class of America, and Chuck Schumer's, it's time for him to go.
you,
And I mean, if I were Tallarico, and I would give him this advice. I think Jackson came out and said last week, I'm not going to support Chuck Schumer. I'll support somebody, but I'm not going to support Chuck Schumer. It does two things. One is it takes the boogeyman away from the Republicans who are going to try to distract from Donald Trump and say Chuck Schumer is going to be running this person's vote no matter where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does that. It sort of removes that negative thing from it, and then it separates you from being a Washington Democrat. And somebody in
right,
Alabama, and somebody in Texas, and somebody in Maine, the most important thing they can do is say, I'm not part of that deal. And a
right.
good
Yeah.
way to say you're not part of that deal is say you're not going to support Chuck Schumer.
Joe, if you were
Yeah.
advising Democrats, would you tell them distance yourself from Chuck Schumer at all
Oh,
costs?
I think I was one of the first people saying Chuck shouldn't be the majority, be our leader anymore in the Senate. I mean, literally, like, literally a year, 2 years ago, I was saying that because I just think, and I've said it, look, a lot of people, the reason they got there and the reason they're in leadership was in the old days, you had to be able to have a leader who could go across and cut a deal with McConnell or somebody and get 4 or 5 votes and, and keep the caucus together when you did it. And Schumer was actually very, very good at that. I mean, that was what he was, so he was groomed. I mean, when the guy gets in the Senate the first day and starts moving up the leadership ladder, that's how it goes. We're in a totally, completely different world. You need a strong opposition leader who's going to who's not, and he's just not that guy. It's not. This isn't an affront on him. He's just not the right person for the moment.
And
Democratic.
and Joe and Joe, he's not an effective communicator.
Right. Yeah. No. I agree with that. That goes without saying, Matthew. But so, literally, in Massachusetts right now, you do have this weird fight on the Democratic primary, where Seth Moulton is running, saying he will not support Schumer for leader, and of course Markey, who's 80 and would be 86 when he leaves, is in the Schumer is my leader category. I don't know if Seth will win that or not, but it's clearly one of the undercurrents in that primary. I agree with Matthew. If you're a Democratic nominee out there in any state, it's the best place to be is we need new leadership in Washington. Period. Don't forget about Schumer. We just need running because we need new leadership. It's not working. The status quo isn't working. We need change. And yes, I will vote for a new leader. That's all you got to do. And I don't understand why even some of the incumbents like Markey, et cetera, are still out there thinking acting like, by the way, if we take the Senate, Chuck Schumer has a chance of getting the votes to be the leader again. I don't believe he does. And so I don't even understand why sort of keep the facade up of, oh, yes, of course, I'll be voting for Schumer. It doesn't. Oh, because you want the money in the general election. That's the only possible explanation. And like Schumer's not going to take a walk on you if you can win that Senate seat. He can't afford to. So that's shouldn't even be a worry.
I think it's interesting that the anti-Chuck Schumer contingent, it doesn't break down on ideological lines,
No.
because Markey is the progressive in that race.
Yeah.
And yet he's with Schumer. Alyssa Slotkin, who is considered a fairly moderate senator from Michigan, she said that Chuck Schumer shouldn't be leader. I think that to some degree it's generational.